You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Okay, let's be honest, guys. It wasn't pretty, but we got to talk about it.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Report Lobtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Welcome on into the Lobtown Podcast, part of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. We are here. Little reaction to Arizona versus Auburn. I made the trip out there, so that's why it's a little late. I had to get back in town, collect my thoughts a little bit, talk to you guys about what happened out there in Tucson. Make sure that you are following along with all the things we got going on. Subscribe to the channel, all those things. But, man, let's get into the conversation because I definitely want to talk about this game. Honestly, I did not expect Auburn to win this game, but I thought that they would be able to keep it closer than they did. In the first half, it looked like it was going to be that, right? Auburn actually took an early lead in this game, and they were playing really well defensively and never really looked great on offense, but they were doing enough to be able to stem the tide of what was happening. And then, Arizona goes on this big run and they stretch the lead out. And then Auburn goes on a run at the end of the half. And I'm thinking, okay, they finally found out, what they needed to do to be able to conquer this. They're going to be able to close this and make this respectable in the second half. And it just never came together in the second half of that game. Mostly the biggest issue, when you go back and you really watch this game and you look at the numbers, the biggest issue for this team is not the size deficit. I know it feels like that because the big teams are the ones that are giving Auburn the problems, right? When you go and you look at the size differential between Michigan and Auburn, you see that blowout loss and you're like, oh my God, they can't handle size. And you go and you look at this Arizona team, really tall team, and you're like, oh my God, they can't handle size. That wasn't the biggest issue in this game. It was really just the cleanliness. And honestly, if you go and look at all of the games so far, the ones that Auburn's has won, the ones that Auburn's lost, it's the cleanliness of the operation, particularly on the offensive end. They have their issues on defense for sure. And I think that defense is one of those things where it takes a little bit more time to gel and understand how to play on a string and trust your teammates in a very different way. Offensively, the execution is where it's been disappointing for me because they have so many talented offensive players. I think it's easier, oddly enough, to play quality offense with having less time together if you just do the things that you're supposed to do, execution, because it's less about, oh, I know what he's going to do. Like, it's the play, right? Like, we run the play and, you've been doing a lot of this stuff basketball-wise your entire life. You've been doing a lot of the defensive stuff as well, but like rotations defensively and the communications necessary, there's not a lot of communication that happens on the offensive end. It is just read and react stuff. And defense, to a degree, is that, but communication is such a bigger part of defense, and you really have to have good defensive anchors to be a really good defensive team. And it takes a while to be able to get that communication and that anchoring figured out, right? And understanding kind of who your stoppers are and what they do really well and, how they perform in these types of scenarios, particularly when you're in late game stuff, right? So I'm not as surprised that the defense has not come along yet. It's very early in the season, right? They've only played 10 games now. So really, 12 games if you count the exhibitions, but they haven't played enough basketball and they haven't been healthy the entirety of that time, right? So they're trying to figure out rotations, all those sorts of things. So I'm not surprised the defense isn't there yet. The offense looking the way that it does, though, that's a byproduct of just a little bit of lack of focus in the way in which they're executing details and a little bit of frustration, selfishness. I don't think that this is a selfish basketball team. I think that what happens is once they get into a deficit, they start thinking, okay, let me just go out here and get a bucket real quick, right? Like, and it becomes this, I need to just do something. And they have guys that can just go and do that. But that has to come within the framework of the offense. And there is a level of trust that needs to happen with the ball will find you if you just figure out how to play within the offense that they have not developed yet offensively. So they kind of need guys to go on this hot streak where they just can't miss in order for the offense to look good until they can build that trust. And you really can't build it until you've gone through those times where you've needed to build it and you're like, okay, I know that guy's going to come through in this way and he's going to be able to shoot this kind of shot and I can expect that and go get this kind of rebound if necessary. They have to build that trust and it's still not there yet, honestly. So that's really the bigger deficit, right? That they need because the offensive execution and the lack of cleanliness in that manifests itself in different ways in different games. Poor shot selection, unforced turnovers, just the inability to like it becomes this my turn thing, right? Where even if it's a good shot, it's not one within the frame of the offense. So it's an unexpected shot. You're not in position to get the offensive rebounds, which they've done a good job for the vast majority of the season in the games in which they've won, getting second chance opportunities, right? There are a lot of things that this Auburn team does well that when they don't do those things, right? Like, I mean, this is not rocket science. You don't do the things that you're supposed to do well, you're going to lose basketball games. But when they don't do those things, it becomes a much bigger hill to climb when you are playing quality competition in which there is a size deficit, right? So you don't have the ability to just kind of, this is kind of the idea of what I think, the Hugh Freeze wanted to do with Auburn's football is say, I've got enough guys that can just go out there and make plays that I don't have to be great at coaching. This is not saying that Stephen Pearl and his staff are not good at coaching, but I'm saying they have enough playmakers where when they're playing evenly matched or worse competition, they can go out there and manufacture wins just with their sheer talent and ability to go out there and make a play randomly every now and then, right? When you're playing quality teams or teams in which you have a disadvantage, a distinct disadvantage, your execution has to go up to the next level. And it's not that they're not being coached to do that stuff. They have to trust each other in the games to be able to execute to that level. They have not gotten to that place yet consistently enough. They show it in spurts during games, but consistently enough for a full 40 minutes of a game, you have not seen that versus the quality competition. You see frustration lend itself to a lot of very selfish and undisciplined basketball, particularly on the offensive end. And as Coach Stephen Pearl said in the post game, sometimes when you're playing poor offensively, it reflects your effort on the defensive end. And therefore, they're not giving the max effort on defense necessary to really counteract what's happening on the offensive end. So, but I think for this team full of players, not full of players, but your stars on this team being really good offensive players, their offense dictates their effort on defense too much, and that leads to them not being as good as they can be in those major moments. Let's take a look at the numbers here, because this is what I mean about the size wasn't really the biggest factor in this, right? When you look at this, Auburn lost this game handily, right? Like, so the scoreboard definitely reflects a large disparity between the way one team was like Arizona was running great stuff. Right? I commented on this multiple times to the guys that were sitting next to me. They're running really good stuff, and you can see them being on the same page with how they want to be able to get buckets, the distribution of points, and the way in which they were assisting one another, right? They had 23 assists on 41 make. They were assisting one another and moving the basketball around. Didn't really matter who got the shot as long as they got a good shot. That's a team that has a little bit more trust together. And, listen, they have more guys returning on this team than Auburn does. So they have a little bit of that core trust built up over a season over season than Auburn does. If Auburn had maybe 2 or 3 guys, then you could probably see some continuity bleeding over into the additions, but they just have a whole new roster rebuild. Not making excuses, just the reality. I saw a conversation about this, about whether or not Bruce Pearl would have done better with this. And I honestly think the answer is no. Like, I think that this is kind of the result of what you have with this collection of players, and it's going to take time, whether it is Stephen Pearl or Bruce Pearl at the helm, to figure out how they're going to get these guys to buy in. Is it maybe more difficult to hear the voice of Stephen Pearl versus Bruce Pearl when Bruce Pearl has like the decades of experience, and so you're hearing it come from a different voice, and maybe you listen to it differently? I think that maybe that's a possibility, but I don't think it's because Stephen Pearl is not equipped to be able to do this. He was in a very tough situation, and I think he's actually got this team playing fairly well. It doesn't feel like it when the 3 losses you've had or two of those have been against the best teams on your schedule, and you've gotten absolutely demolished. You feel as if your coach is not doing what he needs to do, but I don't think that that's the case, because if you look at that Houston game, another really good team, they did what they needed to do to make that game close, and then they go out and they get some other wins versus P4 competition already this season, on the road in Vegas, and then at home versus NC State. You see teams that are likely going to be, if not in the tournament, then very on the bubble for the tournament. In all of those wins, you see teams in which they were able to get dubs against. And you see a team that has the ability to go play with the Houston, right? And so I do think today this is still a tournament basketball team, right? Not playing like a championship team, but they're still a tournament level basketball team today. But anyway, let's go look at the numbers and kind of take a look at what happened in this game for Auburn. Of course, you want to start with, let's just look at the overall numbers and we'll look at player by player. 33% for the game. That goes back to what I'm talking about. Like, you can't shoot 33%, right? Credit to Arizona for their ability to wall up, but Auburn had a lot of good looks that they just didn't knock down, particularly from the mid-range. I know those aren't like, analytics will tell you that those aren't good shots to be able to take, but they're not a good three-point shooting team. So if it is three-pointer or go all the way to the rim and finish amongst the trees, then yeah, you're going to have a problem. If you can be more efficient in your mid-range, which Arizona was absolutely deadly from mid-range in this game. If you go back and look at the number of mid-range jump shots and floaters and things that weren't layups, right? Like just stuff from like 5 to 10 feet that they made in this game, you see the difference in a team that's willing to take what the defense gives you and knock those down proficiently. And Auburn, a team that's kind of trying to force some stuff in the lane and not being able to do that because they do have that disparity in size. But 33% from the field is absolutely atrocious. You only made 21 made baskets. Arizona made 41. So, hey, all right, there you go. 24% from three, only 6 made three-pointers in this game. You shot 25 of those. That's just not going to get it. If you are going to be an undersized team, I've said this before, if you're a team that's going to be undersized, you need to be able to play small ball. Small ball only works when you can play at pace and you can spread teams out because you can shoot the ball. Like, if you're not going to be quicker to the basketball and loose balls and being able to create stuff in the half court defense that gives you fast break points, and you need to be in the half court able to move the ball efficiently and get yourself buckets because you're, backdoor cuts and all that sort of thing. And that only works when you're playing 5-out spread ball and you can knock down to three. Shooting 24% is not going to get it done. They just have to be better with their jump shooting ability as a team, whether that is the medium range or the three-point shot. That's got to happen more consistently for this team to be able to be undersized and successful against these bigger teams. Did much better in the free throw line, 20 of 25 in this game. 15 turnovers, still not good, but Arizona turned the ball over 13 times. So you're only -2 in the turnover situation. So it's not like you're doing the NC State thing where you turn the ball over 20 times. Again, 15 is still too much, right? For a team that had been averaging just under 10 a game, you don't want to be 5+ on that. But that's not terrible turnover-wise, considering what the disparity of turnovers was in this game. But points off turnovers was the difference, right? Arizona able to get back on defense. Auburn not able to get the live ball turnover so you can get the fast break points as much. Arizona had 21 to Auburn's 12. Again, they're a smaller team, but the rebounding disparity, you only miss -6, right? -6 on the boards there, 40 to 34 in favor of Arizona. But the defensive rebounding, honestly, is the place where Arizona hurt them. Like, it was one shot and that was it, right? And so the big disparity, 29 defensive rebounds. You miss a lot of shots, you don't get a lot of offensive rebounds. That's going to hurt you. And you won the offensive rebounding battle. So this is why I reiterate, I don't think that this is just about size, right? You didn't get beat in all the size categories handily. Where you got beat was, right, like blocks. Auburn had one more block in this game than Arizona. Like, so you normally see statistically that show up in that way. Arizona did a really good job of walling up at the rim. Stephen Pro talked about this in the post game, so that they made those very tough twos and they didn't foul when they got in there in the paint. But you've got to be able to know that that's happening on a consistent basis and get to that mid-range a little bit more efficiently. Bench points. This is a huge thing. Auburn only 6 points off of the bench. Those came from 3 from Williams Adams, 2 from Magwood, and 1 from Philip Jovic. That's not going to get it versus 27 from Arizona's bench. You need to be able to take your starters off the floor. You need Tahaad Pettiford to be able to come off the floor for more than he played 34 minutes in this game. You need him to be off of the floor for at least 10 minutes of game time. At least. He doesn't need to be playing more than 30 to 32 at the most minutes per game. You really want that to be closer to 25 to 27, but 30 really should be the top end of that. So you've got to have guard play that allows him to come off the floor and they feel good about what they're going to be doing offensively without him in there, not having a bunch of turnovers, that sort of thing. So your bench has to be able to produce. Right now, it's just not doing that on a consistent enough level. And then points in the paint. This is where that size disparity is going to show. But again, it wasn't just because they're taller. They were making those mid-range jump shots consistently. 60 points in the paint for Arizona to Auburn's 24. Auburn was not knocking down the medium range stuff when they got in there inside of 10 feet. I mean, shoot, they didn't shoot well from anywhere, but like that is really where you start to see the sharp difference in what was happening offensively for these two basketball teams in that game. Fast break points, Arizona got that by 6 points, so it's not a huge disparity there. Again, I already told you Auburn won the blocks battle. Even on steals, assisted baskets, Auburn only had 7. That's 1/3 of their shots assisted. That's not going to get it done. Again, you need to be a small ball team, moving the basketball frequently, being able to get yourself easy looks, and being able to knock those down, particularly from 3. Did not happen in this game. All right. All of that being said, I'm still not down on where this team can be. I mean, I didn't think this was going to be a team that's going to be competing for a national championship to start the season. I just thought that there was too many new pieces to be able to do that. And you didn't just go get a bunch of, former McDonald's All-Americans and all this kind of stuff and, buy your way into, a championship looking squad. You got yourself a team that's going to have to figure out some stuff to make it happen. And they haven't figured that out yet. So they're still a tournament team, but not a championship team as of yet. And the SEC, by the way, is wide open right now. So Auburn still has an opportunity to go into tournament to conference play and make some noise. But we'll talk about that at the end of the preseason stuff or the out of con stuff. We'll talk SEC schedule later on. Tahaad Pettiford, good night. Tahaad versus these teams, he just turns it up to a new level. 30 points on 10 of 19 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. Didn't miss a free throw, 5 of 5 there. He had 3 boards and only 1 assist, though. This is the thing, right? Like, I love 30-point Tahaad, but somebody's got to be a floor general out there and figure out how to facilitate. He hasn't found the balance of those two things quite yet. 1 assist and 2 turnovers ain't going to get it. Or they have to figure out who is going to be the guy that is the assist man. And I thought that in the absence of Tahaad being that, and they run more stuff for him to score, they were going to be able to run more stuff through Murphy to be able to be a facilitator through the high post. That hasn't happened quite yet either. Hall has to be better and, being a guy that demands double teams a lot, being able to pass out of those double teams. His turnover numbers are way too high consistently as well. But anyway, we'll go back down this. He had 1 block shot to Tahaad and a steal in this game, along with those 3 rebounds. The next high point person was Keyshawn Hall with 13, right? 30 and 13. Again, and you only score 68 points, not going to get it done. 3 of 11 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3. He didn't take a lot of really good looks from 3. I thought he forced it a lot. He probably got fouled a lot more than he got whistles for. He went to the free throw line. All his free throws came in the second half of the game, and he went 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Only 4 boards in this game. I think he needs to be closer to a double-double consistently for this team to be the type of team that it can go out there and get these types of wins in 36 minutes, meaning he didn't come off the floor very much. Not a very efficient and effective game from him. Only having 13 points and 4 rebounds. And then he had 3 turnovers on top of that with 1 block and 1 steal. Not going to get it done. 8 and 8 from Overton and Murphy there. Overton, after having the phenomenal NC State game, only 1 of 8 in this game. 0 of 4 from 3. Did make all of his free throws in this one. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, but also 2 turnovers and got 2 steals in this one in his 27 minutes of action. Murphy was 4 of 8. He grabbed 8 boards. He was the highest rebound guy for the team. 1 assist, but 3 turnovers from him with 1 steal. That's just way too many turnovers for a guy, again, that I think needs to be an assist guy for this team. And then you just don't really get much of anything from anybody else. You got 3 points from Elijah Freeman on 1 of 7 shooting. You got 2 points from Caden Magwood on 1 of 4 shooting. 3 points from Williams Adams on 1 of 6 shooting. He was 1 of 4 from the free throw line. And Philip Jovic didn't take a single shot during this game. 2 free throws and made 1 of those. He did get 5 rebounds, and then you got 3 rebounds from Elijah Freeman, 2 from Overton. I already talked about that. Magwood got you aboard. Williams Adams got 2. Williams Adams, man, he just has not been the same guy versus this tougher competition. He needs to find that aggressiveness that he had earlier in the season and that hustle that allowed him to kind of be a glue guy for this team, to be able to go out there and get you, 8 to 10 points off of just hustle, energy, downhill, get to the rim, and then make your free throws when you get that opportunity. That's something this team needs that in order to be a small ball type of team. If he's going to be a power forward out there for you in a small ball lineup where you've got Hall as the 5 and him as the 4, then he needs to be able to go grab boards. He needs to be able to go get to the floor and get loose balls. He needs to be a solid screen setter. He needs to be a solid passer. The big to big passing wasn't there in this game. There's just a lot of things that when Auburn's good, they're really good at, and when they're bad, you can see it on the stat sheet. They just weren't doing any of the things that make them successful. Again, and this is not to say Arizona did a great job. Again, I think that Arizona did a phenomenal job in the half court offense, being able to run the stuff that they needed to get themselves quality shots. I think Arizona did a great job defensively when they started doing the blitz of the pick and roll in the second half, and they went on that run there to kind of widen the lead. I thought that they did it. That was a great strategic switch up, and it really knocked Auburn off of their game a little bit there in the first half of that game. They did a good job in the half court of the pressure out front on the guards to make it difficult for them to get into their action. Ball denial was really good from Arizona. They did some great things. So I'm not saying Arizona's a really great team. And again, I thought Arizona was going to win this game. The disparity in the points, I think, comes down to the way Auburn played, though, and not what Arizona did. But overall, again, not a very good game. There's not a really great things to take away from this, but I do want to camp out on one more topic, and that is the size disparity, because I did ask Coach Stephen Pearl about this in the post game, and he had some not interesting answers, but he did talk about the reason why Emeka Oporum has yet to really see a lot of action in some of these games in which you see the size disparity being such a huge thing. We'll talk about that when we get back from this break. Definitely want to give a quick shout out, though, to the folks who helped make this possible, and that is the folks over at the Tax Express over there in Montgomery. It's tax time, and the Tax Express is here to make it easy. Since 2004, they've helped thousands of clients to stay on track with personalized, efficient tax preparation designed to maximize your return. Whether you prefer in-person service or virtual convenience, they've got you covered. Book online, upload your documents securely, and relax while they handle the rest. And don't forget, your financial future matters. Ask about life insurance options to protect what matters the most. Located at 4144 Carmichael Road, Suite 1 in Montgomery, Alabama. IRS authorized e-file agency. Convenient, relatable, trusted. Book now and relax later. Call 334-578-0264 or visit thetaxexpressmtg.com. Scan the QR code on the screen to schedule your appointment, upload documents, or get directions. The Tax Express, keeping you on track since 2004. All aboard with the Tax Express. And speaking of securing a financial future, shout out to our sponsors as well, the folks over at AMA. That's AIM and Associates, Abels, I&O Moore and Associates. They've been in business for almost 25 years, and they manage over $200 million for clients in over 25 states and 2 foreign countries. They're not some big corporate operation. This is an Auburn family providing honest guidance and top-notch service. You can get the feel of a small town with years of insight, perspective, and results. Jeff, David, and Conlon are great to work with. Contact Abels, I&O Moore and Associates at 912-777-4128 or visit ama.inc.com to see why they're different. The War Report has been compensated by Abels I&O Moore and Associates for this endorsement. Abels I&O Moore and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. All investing involves risk, including the potential of loss of principal, and past performance does not indicate future results. What is indicative of future results is playing basketball the way that you've always done it, and Auburn needs to be able to do that more consistently. Again, I talked with Coach Pearl I asked Coach Stephen Pearl in the postgame about how come Emeka Oporum doesn't get more minutes in these games when you know you're going to have this size deficit. And the reason he gave for that was he doesn't want to put Mech out there in a position where his lack of size as far as physicality is going to be a deficit for him. He wants to set him up for success, but he admitted, if these are the results I'm going to get from the bigs that I have out there, then, maybe I should try him a few more minutes and see if he can give us a spark or something off the bench. But that's something I think that needs to be a conversation about whether or not they need to try to just maybe they do need some more length on the interior to at least try to challenge the shots at the rim a little bit better, because, one of the things he did say in retort to that or response was he knows he's going to try to block everything out there, right? Like he's going to go out there and he's going to be a rim protector. Maybe that's what Auburn needs on defense is the ability to take those risks. He talked about the risks sometimes that their guards are taking, particularly Tahaad Pettiford, that may have put them out of position in some instances. Allow your guards to maybe take a few more risks out front because you're funneling them to a guy who they know is going to be a presence at the rim that alters shots in a different way. So switching up the defensive strategy to allow yourself to funnel them to a shot blocker, even if he doesn't have the physicality down low that some of the other guys have to compete on the boards. Let him go out there and be a roamer shot blocker and let other guys be responsible for that. Maybe that works. I don't know. Listen, I'm not in there in the practices. I don't know what Mech is able to do, but if you set him up for that type of success, maybe he's going to be able to do it. One of the things I did see from him in the games that he played recently is he's got to work on being able to catch the basketball, whether that is off of a rebound or off of a pass that's coming, pretty rapidly from a guard. Like those windows are going to close quickly against the better competition. He needs to be able to catch in traffic, finish in traffic, all those sorts of things, and not get flustered in those situations. And if he's going to be out there at 7'1", 7'2", whatever it is, he does need to be able to clean the boards a little bit better than he has been in these games, putting himself in good position and finding ways to go out there and compete for the offensive glass and the defensive glass for that matter. But that is definitely something that he's going to have to work on. And I know that that's a frustration when you have a guy that's that tall, but he's getting rooted out consistently and not able to grab boards. It doesn't really do you a lot of good. But again, if you're not competing the way that Auburn needs to defensively, you have to switch up those strategies. Maybe they will consider that going forward. Don't know, but we will definitely see. I'm looking forward to seeing what Auburn does in that Purdue game that's coming up in a couple of weeks. They got the ATL trip that's coming up, but they also have that Purdue game, and that's going to be another game where they're going to be playing against a top 5 team. I don't know how far Purdue falls after they got beat, but they're going to be a top 5, top 10 basketball team, and you have to figure out a way to get one of those wins on your resume before you get into SEC play, because I think that's going to help you once SEC play starts to not feel like you got to win, over 10, 12 games, right? Whatever it needs to be. They need to do a much better job they need to figure out how to get one of these, and Purdue is going to be your last opportunity to do that. Last thing I want to talk about here really quickly, because there's not a lot to really break down from that Arizona game. It was an absolute beatdown. I did enjoy the trip out there to Tucson. Hopefully next time I make a trip out there, it will be with a better result for the team I'm out there covering. But really great basketball venue, and the fans were out there being U of A type fans. I was surprised, maybe that's just kind of the way they are when folks come to town. They were embracing a lot of the things that you would expect from that city that's a little west of Auburn in Alabama. Again, maybe it's just something about being the U of A versus Auburn that brings that out of people, or maybe that's just how they treat all the visitors. I have no idea, but it was definitely a very hostile environment, one in which I don't think that Auburn really did well in. But I think playing in that type of environment will bode well for them in the future, because now they've been in that sort of thing and they felt kind of what it's like to have the building come down on you, and maybe they'll respond a little bit better next time. I'm going to be very interested to see what type of road team this Auburn team evolves into when they're in hostile environments. Again, they're going to get another opportunity. It's not going to be there on the campus at Purdue. It's going to be in Indianapolis, but it will be a road test, even though it is a neutral site. Can they figure out how to play in that sort of environment? That is going to get tested very soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. But again, before we get out of here, I did want to talk a little bit of Auburn women's basketball. They 2 straight losses here for this team to teams that honestly, they should have beat. And this is one of those things, again, when you've got a team that's figuring out how to gel, right? Like Caitlin Duhan and Soraya Daniels are the only returners for this team, and Soraya's not playing a heavy amount of minutes, so it's really just Duhan. And fortunately for Auburn, Duhan is more of a senior leader, so that she does have a little bit more experience in these bigger matchups against this type of competition in an Auburn uniform. But they lost this game recently to Syracuse in overtime, and they had an opportunity to win this game in regulation. And they just need to make free throws and or make a last-second shot that was open for Harasum Koulibaly to be able to knock that down and send Syracuse home sad. But they weren't able to get it done. They lost in overtime 66-60. In that overtime period, they gave up 14 points, only able to score 8. And I think it was just, again, for this team, the big thing for them is going to be the turnovers. They turned the ball over 27 times in this game. You just cannot be a team that's turned the ball over as frequently as they are and be able to get out of games against quality competition with dubs. They're shooting 42%. Like, listen, they forced a really talented Syracuse team, held them to only 66 points, including the overtime. They held them to shooting 35% from the field. Syracuse didn't make a single 3-pointer the entirety of this game. But you turn the ball over 27 times, giving them 27 points off of turnovers. Now, you turned them over 33 times, which has been a consistent. They are a team that's going to turn you over. They're going to speed you up. They're going to be able to get out in transition. You scored 26 points off turnovers yourself, but you got out-rebounded because they do have a size. Now, this is a team where the size difference actually does show itself in the stat column. You got out-rebounded 43-34 in this game, and it was evident that those young ladies that were down there on the interior for Syracuse were dominating that paint, whether it was blocked shots, which they had 7 of them, or the rebounding disparity. They had 16 offensive rebounds. They just were not able to compete on the glass on the interior. I'm sitting here wondering, when is Montague going to be healthy and able to come contribute for this team? Hopefully they will get her for the start of SEC play. I was hoping that she'd get in before then, get a couple of reps in before SEC play. They desperately need a big with some toughness down low to be able to compete consistently, because they're not being able to get that from Arik Angui. They're playing Claire Koulibaly a little bit down low, and she's been okay, but not great. She just doesn't really have that toughness and doesn't have the verticality to be able to compete, to block shots, or be able to get rebounds consistently. And Hadi Lay stays in foul trouble too much, right? Like she can't stay on the floor because she's in foul trouble, and she's really she is the best big that Auburn has. Now, when Montague gets back and she's healthy enough to get into the starting rotation, that starting rotation is going to look very different, which means your bench is going to look different. But you're likely going to have to move. I think that's going to be interesting. Who gets moved to the bench? Because Montague is going to play the 5 for you. Hadi Lay is going to be your 4, which is a more natural position for her. And I think she's going to match up better against the 4s around this league. You're likely going to still have Katie Duhan at the 3. She's playing the 4 right now, which, again, 3 is a much better matchup wise for her to be able to be on someone who's around the same size as her. You need the scoring that you're getting from Maya Pettiford right now, and you need the ball handling from Jackson. So does that mean that you move Harris to the bench, or do you move Pettiford's scoring to the bench and have her come in and be somebody who can stretch off of the bench and get you some points off the bench? It's going to be really interesting to see what the rotations look like once Montague is in there and is healthy. I do hope to get an opportunity to talk to, I haven't had a chance to really get in there and get to press conferences and anything of that nature, but I do want to hear from Coach Vickers about what his plan is and kind of the timetable with Montague and how the insertion of her back into the situation helps. But I do think that gives you another body on the interior to be able to compete and close this gap in the rebounding deficit. Give you somebody who maybe can bother shots, and she can step out and shoot it a little bit from distance. Not saying she's a 3-point shooter, but it does change your rotations a little bit, which means you're going to have possibly Hadileh not getting foul trouble as much because she's not going to be playing against as many centers as often. She can come down off of that 33-minute mark and maybe get down closer to 25, 26 minutes rotating and being a little bit fresher during the game. Same thing for, you're not getting a ton of minutes, but let's just look at, Clara Koulibaly right now played 19 minutes in that game. You're likely going to borrow 5 or 6 minutes of her time, maybe even up to 10 minutes of her time when you insert Montague in there, and she's going to be able to be fresher for you in those times. She can shoot the ball fairly well from mid-range. Maybe you can get her in there and get some of those minutes. But again, that's going to allow you to play Harris more at the 2 and the 3 than at the 3/4 that she's been doing. Duhan's going to be able to play more 2-3 instead of 3/4. And then you'll be able to, you're probably still not going to get a lot of minutes from Angui because she is similar on the other side, right? She's the big 6'9", so she has the length, but the physicality, she's not able to compete. So you're thinking about like folks like Oporam. Like Angui is in a very similar situation. She's way more raw, but she has the height. But her inability to compete on the glass and take quality shots when she gets the ball in her hand puts you in a situation where you can't play her a ton of minutes, but maybe she can come in and give you some quality minutes once you get that rotation differently. But again, it's going to be very interesting. And you're not playing Daniels very many minutes at all. Matter of fact, she didn't get a single minute registered, I don't think, in this game. So does that allow you to play Daniels a few more minutes at the 3 now that you've got a shorter rotation at the 3 and you can go into a smaller lineup and have Lay now play the 4 or the 5 in some minutes? It changes a lot of things once you get Montague back into the equation there, but I am interested to see what that change is going to look like and how quickly she's going to be able to adapt herself to the pace of play in which Auburn's playing right now under Coach Vickers. But again, hard-fought game, but one, I think both of these last 2 games were games that this Auburn team should have won. No disrespect to Syracuse or Cal in those games, or was it Oregon, in those games. No disrespect to those 2 teams. I do think that Auburn had those games and kind of gave them away in the last few minutes of them. Fought back actually in this Syracuse game and put themselves in position at the free throw line. I think they missed like 2 or 3 free throws in the last few minutes of that game. And then they missed the game winning shot, which again was it's a shot that Harsum makes 9 times out of 10. And the one time she didn't make it was the time that she absolutely needed to, right there at the end of regulation. It would have sent them home with the win up there in Syracuse. But again, all in all, a good game from a team that is still trying to figure themselves out. They still don't really have an identity of this is our go-to person. They've got, I think that Harsum Koulibaly has been admirable in a role of being able to go get a bucket, but she hasn't been consistent. And then you've got Maya Pettiford, who I think is an outstanding scorer, but she is a little inconsistent as well. And then I don't know what's happened with Jamia Harris. She the first few games she was looking great, and of late she just hasn't been there. She's had way too many turnovers. When I look at this game in particular, she turned the ball over 4 times in that game, and a lot of them are bad turnovers from her. She only scored 5 points on 1 of 5 shooting. She was 3 or 4 from the free throw line, but she hasn't been the same kind of dynamic scoring presence that she was early in the season. So hopefully she can get herself back into form there and provide a little bit more scoring punch for this team, because they need someone else to be able to be a pressure release and have multiple lineups in which they can have scorers out there on the floor and rest some folks when they need to be able to go get buckets. I like how she's competing on the defensive end, but she doesn't need to be a little bit better on the offense, because I think she is a scoring punch that they absolutely need to be out there on the floor more consistently. But again, I like where this team is positioned to be able to upset some teams this season. They've had their opportunities. Hopefully they can figure out how to win and finish in those games and cut down on the turnovers, because that's going to be a huge thing for this team. All right, that's it, man. That's all I got for y'all. I appreciate y'all listening to me. Of course, we're going to be back in here. We're going to be previewing the rest of the games that we've got coming up this week. Again, Auburn's going to be in Atlanta this weekend. I will be out there for that game as well. Make sure you tap in with me down here in the comment section. Tell me your thoughts on just where you think this team is. I know a lot of people. Do you think that these Auburn women and men have the ability to go out there and make a tournament, right? Like on a scale of 1 being absolutely not, there's no way, to 5 being, oh yeah, lock me in, they're going to make the tournament. Tell me where you are in that scale on both the men and the women, right down there in the comment section. Before you get out of here, make sure you share the content with somebody, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to this on podcast, that 5-star review is definitely appreciated, and go ahead and sign up for the automatic download so you never miss a drop of content, what we have out here for you all. But that's it. I'm out of here. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle. Peace.